Imagine stepping into this vast, utterly silent hall. The walls around you aren't made of stone, but of like pure, luminous space.
Painted with colors so clear and vibrant they almost seem to glow from within.
Exactly. And at the far end of this vastness stands a single, pristine mirror. But it doesn't just reflect your physical face. It reflects the absolute totality of your mind.
Every hidden fear you suppressed, every comfort you cling to.
Right. Every profound truth you've spent a lifetime avoiding, all of it is cast outward into this vivid, breathing reality. You are basically looking at the infinite, unedited canvas of your own consciousness.
It's a remarkably serene yet overwhelming space to enter.
It really is. So welcome to this deep dive. Take a breath, let your shoulders drop, and, just settle in. Today, we are taking a journey into that hall together.
We certainly are.
We're diving into the first complete translation of a profoundly revered ancient text, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Specifically, we're going to explore its core teachings on navigating what is known as the Bardo of reality.
And, the teachings contained in chapters 11, 12 of this text, they offer this incredibly detailed map of the intermediate state between death and rebirth.
Which is fascinating on its own.
Right, but the brilliant, often overlooked truth of this map is that it isn't just a geography of the afterlife. It is a precise, vivid diagram of how awareness operates at its most fundamental level.
And that is exactly the shift in perspective we need to start with. Because, it is incredibly easy to hear the title Book of the Dead and just assume this is a mythological manual for what happens after our physical heart stops beating.
Right, like a literal travel guide for a ghost.
Exactly. But it is so much more immediate than that. This ancient text is a crystalline mirror reflecting how our own minds project our daily realities. It shows us how we manifest our everyday terrors, how we construct our emotional safe spaces, and, how we project our internal world outward every single waking moment.
To truly grasp the Bardo of reality, we really have to explore the nature of the mind itself. The text operates on this foundational principle that the boundaries we draw between being awake, dreaming, dying, and being reborn, they're much more porous than we typically perceive.
Yeah.
They're simply different modalities, different operating systems of the exact same awareness.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even look at the blinding, vivid visions of the Bardo of reality, we have to look at the doorway.
The transition itself.
Right. I'm trying to wrap my head around this initial transition.
Yeah.
If I imagine the moment consciousness leaves the physical body, and all my daily concepts of me and the world just collapse. Is it just like a blackout? What actually happens mechanically in that precise moment?
Well, in the Dzogchen tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, which serves as the philosophical bedrock for this text, the process of dying is not viewed as a sudden switching off of a light bulb. It is understood as a systematic, profound unbinding. The text describes a sequential dissolution of our physical and mental energies, moving from the grossest, heaviest elements to the most subtle.
Meaning the physical elements of the body.
Exactly. First, the earth element dissolves into water, which is experienced as a loss of physical solidity and boundaries. Then water dissolves into fire, as bodily cohesion and fluids fade.
Wow, so it's a very visceral breakdown.
Very much so. Then fire dissolves into wind, taking away our vital warmth. And finally, wind dissolves into pure space.
So all the heavy, conceptual, dualistic machinery we use to categorize the world, subject and object, you and me, good and bad, it literally just unwinds and falls apart.
It completely collapses. And when that complex machinery stops running, what remains is not a blackout at all.
What is it then?
What remains is called the subtle mind, or the inner radiance. The Tibetan term is rigpa, which translates to pure luminous awareness.
Rigpa, pure luminous awareness.
Right. Imagine an awareness that simply is without needing an object to be aware of. It is pristine cognition, entirely free from that conditioned, chattering mind we walk around with all day.
The voice in our heads.
Exactly. And the text teaches a radical truth here. If a person can simply recognize this brilliant, empty radiance at the very moment of death, they achieve instant liberation.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
They actualize what is called the Buddha body of reality, and the journey ends there. They don't even enter the hallucinatory states of the Bardo.
Oh, wow. It sounds like turning off a noisy, flickering movie projector in a dark theater. For our entire lives, we've been utterly mesmerized by the movie. The drama, the tragedy, the comedy, the constant plot twists of our daily lives.
That's a perfect analogy.
And the moment of dissolution is when the film reel suddenly snaps. the projector's mechanical whirring stops, and you're left sitting in this silent theater looking at nothing but the pure, brilliant, unmoving white light shining directly onto the blank screen.
The light has always been there, projecting the film, but we are just so captivated by the images, so invested in the characters, that we completely ignore the light itself.
Right. But I mean, practically speaking, what happens if you miss that moment? What if you don't recognize the blank screen because you're just too accustomed to watching the movie?
Which most of us are.
Yeah, you've spent decades identifying as the lead character in your own drama, so when the screen goes blank, I imagine the instinct isn't enlightenment, it's sheer panic as you frantically look around for the next reel of film.
This raises an important question, and it is the exact dilemma that Chapter 11 addresses.
Okay.
The text acknowledges, with immense compassion I might add, that the vast majority of us miss that initial moment of pure inner radiance. The habit of being a separate, distinct self is just too deeply ingrained in our subtle architecture.
So we panic.
We do. And when we fail to recognize that primary light as our own true nature, consciousness plunges into the next phase, the Bardo of reality. Because the mind is desperate to perceive something, it begins to project the movie once again.
But there's no physical world left to project onto.
Exactly. So it begins to project its own fundamental nature outward as external visions.
So the mind is basically hallucinating its own pure nature. But because it feels so separate, it interprets those projections as external events happening to it.
Yes. And those projections begin with the emergence of the 42 peaceful deities. These deities manifest sequentially over several days, and they originate from the heart center.
Wait, I want to pause right there because the mechanics of this are fascinating. Why the heart? Why do these specific peaceful visions originate from the heart rather than, say, the mind or the gut?
Well, in Tibetan subtle body anatomy, the heart is the seat of the mind's quiescent, resting energy. It is the center of profound stillness and innate purity.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the peaceful deities that emerge from here are not external gods coming down from the clouds to judge you. The text describes them as the natural purity of our psychophysical aggregates.
Okay, psychophysical aggregates. That is a bit of a mouthful for anyone not holding a degree in Buddhist philosophy.
It is a bit technical, yes.
Are we basically talking about our physical senses, our feelings, and our basic thoughts?
Essentially, yeah. The aggregates are the basic building blocks of our human experience. Form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness.
Got it.
In our daily lives, these building blocks are usually clouded by grasping and attachment. But in the Bardo of reality, stripped of the physical body, these foundational elements of who we are manifest in their absolute purified form.
And they look like deities.
They appear as brilliant, quiescent deities. For instance, the text details the first day, where the entire expanse of space arises as an overwhelming blue light. From the center of that light appears the transcendent Lord Vairocana, seated on a lion throne.
The imagery is just stunning. It's like a vibrant, moving, think a painting. It describes a blue luminosity radiating from Vairocana's heart that is so clear, bright, and dazzling that your disembodied awareness can barely bear to look at it. It's like piercing.
The text is very specific about the quality of that light. That piercing blue brilliance represents the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. It is the absolute truth of existence, shining without any filters.
Wow.
But the text notes a crucial secondary detail here. Alongside this blinding, magnificent blue light, another light appears. A dull, soft, white light.
Right. And on a subsequent day, the deity Vajrasattva appears in a dazzling, laser-like white light, but alongside him appears a dull, smoky light.
Yes, the dual lights.
And the text issues a very stark warning here. It says the consciousness navigating this space will actually be terrified by the bright, piercing lights of truth. They will instinctively want to flee from them and run toward those comforting, dull lights.
It's a matter of psychological survival for the fragmented ego. Those dull, soft lights represent the different realms of cyclical existence.
Meaning samsara.
Yes. The dull white light represents the realm of the gods, which is characterized by complacency. The dull, smoky light represents the hell realms, characterized by anger. These dim lights are generated by our own negative past actions and deep-seated habitual tendencies.
Looking at this from the perspective of someone just trying to survive, it feels completely counterintuitive. If I'm wandering in this disembodied, vast, terrifying state, of course I'm going to run toward the soft, dim, comforting glow.
Right, it feels safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would anyone run toward a blinding, terrifying laser beam that feels like it's going to vaporize them? How is anyone supposed to fight that deeply ingrained basic instinct?
Well, because we are profoundly addicted to our own limitations. We find immense comfort in our delusions, our dramas, and our neuroses because they are familiar. They give us a shape. They make us feel like a somebody.
Oh, that is profound.
And the terrifyingly bright light is the raw, unedited truth of absolute reality. It feels vaporizing because it is vaporizing to the ego. It burns away the illusion that you are a separate, isolated self.
I mean, I see this playing out perfectly in our waking lives right now. When we are faced with a terrifying, expansive opportunity for real growth, maybe a hard truth we need to face about our relationship, or a deep vulnerability we need to express, we often flee from the blinding light of that truth.
We run right back to the dull, smoky light of our old habits.
Exactly. We numb out, we doom scroll, we pick a fight just to feel something familiar, even if that familiar thing is a hell realm of our own making.
Because the ego would rather suffer in a familiar, manageable way than dissolve into the terrifying vastness of liberation.
That is so true.
And this is why the practice of reading this text aloud to the deceased is so critical. The actual title of this section is The Great Liberation by Hearing.
Right, it's meant to be heard.
Yes, the Lama sitting beside the body is literally speaking into the Bardo, acting as a real-time guide. They are instructing the consciousness. Do not be awed by the dazzling light. Do not be terrified. Have confidence in it. Recognize it as the light ray of your own true nature. Do not delight in the dull light. It is the inviting path of your own delusions.
So the text is a lifeline, a voice cutting through the fog. But if the mind is just a volatile, disembodied balloon blowing around in a hurricane of its own fears, well, what happens if it still doesn't get it? What if the consciousness is so deeply entrenched in its habits that it rejects the peaceful deities and flees into the shadows?
Then the environment violently shifts. The mind, failing to find rest and recognition in its quiescent state, becomes desperate. It becomes active, defensive, and dynamic.
It panics.
Exactly. And the locus of manifestation moves away from the heart center and moves up into the brain. And this shift in subtle anatomy brings forth the terrifying assembly of the 58 wrathful, blood-drinking deities.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because the text makes a radical pivot that completely shifts how you view these monstrous figures. These horrifying, wrathful deities aren't demons coming from some external hell to punish you.
Not at all.
They're the exact same entities as the peaceful deities, just manifesting in a different aspect.
Yes, they are the dynamic, explosive expression of the mind's active transformation of aversion. When pure awareness encounters our massive resistance, our stubborn refusal to let go of our ego, it meets that resistance with wrathful energy.
And why from the brain?
Because the brain is the center of our conceptual proliferation, our desperate intellectualizing, our survival instincts. The wrathful deities are the fierce aspect of compassion, forcefully trying to sever the bonds of a mind that absolutely refuses to be freed.
And the imagery shifts from a serene painting to an overwhelming nightmare. The text describes the great, glorious Buddha Haruka manifesting directly from within your own brain. He is dark brown, blazing in a massive fire of light. He has 3 heads, 6 arms, and 9 eyes fixed in a fearsome, glaring gaze.
Very intimidating.
Yeah, his eyebrows are quivering like lightning, his fangs are bared, and he is laughing with a booming, piercing cry of, "Analan, haha."
The overwhelming nature of the vision is entirely intentional. And Haruka doesn't appear alone. He is accompanied by 28 various animal-headed deities, women with the heads of yaks, snakes, and leopards, bearing weapons and surrounded by flames.
I mean, the text doesn't pull any punches here. It warns that if you fail to recognize these terrifying, massive figures as the natural, expressive power of your own mind, they will appear to you as Yama, the Lord of Death.
Yes?
You will faint from pure terror, and the cycle of suffering and cyclical existence will simply snap back into place.
It is a state of total psychological fragmentation. The ego is entirely surrounded and assaulted by its own projected fears, weaponized against itself.
But amidst all this blood and fire, the text offers one of the most brilliant, perfectly clarifying analogies to help us grasp how to navigate this terror. It compares the experience of facing these wrathful deities to seeing a stuffed lion.
I love this analogy.
It's so good. Imagine walking into a dimly lit room and suddenly seeing a massive snarling lion in the corner. If you don't know it's stuffed, your body reacts as if it's real. You are paralyzed with absolute terror. Your heart pounds, adrenaline floods your system, you prepare to die.
Right. The fear is very real.
Exactly. But the absolute second someone walks in, flips on the light switch and says, hey, look closely, it's just a skin, it's stuffed. The fear vanishes instantaneously. The line itself hasn't moved, it hasn't changed. But your perception of it shifts entirely, and the terror evaporates. The text is telling us that these terrifying, blood-drinking deities, no matter how real they seem, are just the stuffed lions of our own mind.
What's fascinating here is how directly the stuffed lion analogy validates the entire purpose of the text. The Lama reading the Great Liberation by hearing is the person flipping on the light switch.
Wow, yeah.
Consciousness in the Bardo is utterly volatile. It is deeply afraid of these wrathful deities, which the text notes can appear as large as the mythological Mount Sumeru.
So massive.
Right. And the Lama's voice serves to cut through the hallucination, reminding the deceased, do not be afraid. This is your own projection. Recognize the stuffed lion. The moment that recognition dawns, the hallucination loses its power to terrorize, and liberation is achieved.
It's all about recognizing the projector rather than fighting the projected image on the screen. But let's be honest, even in our mundane waking lives, when our mind starts projecting a worst-case scenario, it is incredibly hard to maintain that focus.
It really is.
If the mind in the Bardo is totally unanchored, without a physical body to weigh it down, how does a consciousness possibly ground itself against these overwhelming hallucinations?
Well, the architecture of the text anticipates this exact problem. It doesn't just describe the terrifying visions, it provides the precise psychological and spiritual tools needed to weather them.
And this is chapter 12.
Yes, this is the primary function of Chapter 12, which consists of specific aspirational prayers meant to be read at the time of death and during the intermediate states.
Specifically, the aspirational prayer, which protects from fear of the intermediate states. The language here is incredibly spacious and moving. It reads, when I roam alone, separated from my loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, naturally manifesting, may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate states be annulled.
To understand why these prayers are so vital, we have to look at the condition of the mental body in the Bardo. Because the consciousness no longer has a dense physical brain or a material nervous system to slow things down, it is terrifyingly volatile.
It's untethered.
Yes. The text describes the mental body as being relentlessly blown about by the karmic winds of past actions. In this unmoored state, a single virtuous or non-virtuous thought carries immense, instantaneous world-building power.
So without a physical brain to act as a shock absorber, a single scary thought is basically like dropping a match into a fireworks factory. The environment instantaneously explodes into a terrifying reality.
Precisely the danger. The environment reacts instantly to the mind's frequency. So the aspirational prayers serve as an unbreakable anchor.
A way to ground the mind.
Right. When the consciousness is being battered by these massive karmic winds, the rhythmic, clear, repetitive intention of the prayer cuts through the noise of the panic. It systematically directs the mind away from non-virtuous thoughts, away from grasping in terror, and instills a pure, focused perception.
It's a lifeline.
It is a lifeline, repeatedly reminding the deceased to look at the terrifying light and recognize it as their own true nature.
Which brings us to the most vital question. What does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? How does an ancient Tibetan text about navigating the afterlife map onto a random Tuesday afternoon?
It maps perfectly.
It really does. The profound realization here is that you don't have to be dead to use this map. When you are going through an intense emotional storm, maybe a period of crushing anxiety, a sudden devastating crisis at work, or a volatile conflict in your relationship, your mind becomes incredibly unmoored.
You lose your center.
Yes, you lose your emotional grounding. In those moments of deep anxiety, your own personal wrathful deities are screaming at you from the center of your brain. Your fears manifest as absolute, inescapable, terrifying realities.
The psychological parallels are not just similar, they are identical mechanisms of mind. The practice of centering your intention in waking life, whether you do that through an aspirational prayer, a dedicated meditation practice, a mantra, or simply taking a focused, conscious breath acts as that exact same anchor.
It keeps you grounded.
It stops your mind from being blown into the fireworks factory by the winds of its own emotional karma. It gives you the spaciousness to pause, look at the terrifying scenario your anxiety is vividly projecting, and realize that it is, in fact, a stuffed lion.
It all comes back to the mind. The journey through the Bardo of reality, as laid out in these chapters, is the ultimate deep dive into the canvas of consciousness.
It truly is.
Whether we are talking about the beautiful, peaceful deities that emerge from the heart to represent our deepest attachments and comfort zones, or the terrifying, wrathful deities that explode from the brain to represent our darkest aversions and panic, they're all just projections. They are the pure light of our own awareness, refracted through the dense prism of our habits, our fears, and our ego.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we finally see the true, radical nature of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. In so many traditions, liberation or salvation is framed as an escape.
Like going to a better place.
Right, it is a journey to some external heaven, a perfect place outside of yourself. But this text insists that liberation is not a destination you travel to. It is simply the act of recognizing the true nature of your own mind.
Just recognizing it.
That recognition is the entirety of the path. And whether that flash of recognition happens in the waking state, while walking down the street, in the middle of a vivid dream, or in the disembodied, vast state of the Bardo, the result is exactly the same: instant liberation. The Buddha body of reality is always present, shining behind the film reel, just waiting to be recognized.
It is an incredibly empowering realization. It means the key to the ultimate mystery of existence isn't hidden away in some far-off, inaccessible celestial realm. It is literally the very awareness you are using right now to listen to my voice. The mechanism of liberation is already built into you.
It is the blank, brilliant screen behind the movie of your life.
So as we step out of this spacious, silent hall of mirrors and back into the flow of your day, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. The next time you feel completely overwhelmed by a terrifying situation, or you feel a paralyzing fear rising up in your daily waking life, pause.
Take a breath.
Take a deep, intentional breath and ask yourself, are you instinctively running toward the comforting, dull, smoky light of your old familiar habits? Or are you brave enough to look the terrifying, radiant truth right in the eye and recognize that it is just a projection of your own beautiful, boundless mind? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. May your path be clear and your awareness radiant.